Hello and welcome to Bhagavad Gita study. Today we will be looking at second chapter 40th verse, which is Neha Bhikramana Shosti Pratyavayo na vidyate Swalpamapyasya dharmasya Drayate Mahato Bhayat, which I consider the most promising verse in Bhagavad Gita. For verse a week series, I will only be going to Sadhak Sanjivani. And if you have the copy or if you have no copies at all, then this is a good book to get. But if you already have a copy of Bhagavad Gita, you can just follow along with your purport and listen to what this purport has to say. In this path of selfless action, there is neither loss or effort nor any adverse result. Even a little practice of this discipline, dharma, protects one from great danger of birth and death. Why is this the most promising verse? It is promising you that whatever you have done, and if you are unable to continue, you are able to pick it off where you left, which is whatever little you do, it is going to save you. Number two is there is no loss of effort or adverse result. What does that mean? Here he says pratyavayo na vidyate. Pratyavayo dosha or pratyavayo is a fault or an adverse result or a side effect, let's say, of something that you do that can cause the mistakeful actions. For example, you're performing a sacrifice or a puja which is meant to be performed with a particular result in mind. For example, you're performing a fire ritual, just called homa, for you to increase your wealth. For example, you could, if you not thorough on what you're doing, and if the mantras are read incorrectly, if there are pronunciation mistakes or something, it could have the total opposite effect. Here Swami says, the Lord says, which Swami Ram Suktas has added to, is that if there is any error in pronunciation or incantations or in performing the sacrifice, suppose a man performs sacrifice for the birth of a son, if it's not performed according to scriptures, it might result in death of a member of the family instead of blessing him with a son. Anything could happen because this is done with something in mind. It has to be done with so much care. However, if you're walking the spiritual path, for example, what could be the adverse result? Unevenness of mind is an adverse result. Attachment and aversion is uneven mindedness. This uneven mindedness leads to a cycle of birth and death. But when a man becomes equanimous, attachment and aversion are rooted out, and on annihilation of attachment and aversion, there is no unevenness of mind. Therefore, any adverse result is out of the question. So, when you walk the spiritual path, what you're attacking or what you're addressing is the unevenness of mind. What is unevenness of mind? Raga and dvesha, which is attachment and aversion. If that unevenness of mind does not, uneven mindedness does not exist, what could be the adverse result? There is actually nothing, because you are equanimous. Yesterday we saw that equanimity is the highest ideal, right? That's where you're walking towards in this path. So even one step ahead in the path is a gain, and you're not going to go 5 steps backward. You are going to progress how much ever you progress, and even if you do not keep it up, or if you fail, you will only start in your next birth from where you left off. Swalpamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. He talks of something like a devotee deviating from the path of yoga, having enjoyed heavenly pleasures for many years and having taken birth in the house of righteous persons, does not lose the knowledge or even-mindedness gain in his previous birth. So he does quote these 640 to 45 about the even-mindedness being real. So even-mindedness, if you gain even a little bit of it and then you fall off the path and go back to the world, you'll still be able to continue your progress in your next life. Lord will perform, or Lord will give you situations that are conducive for your spiritual growth in your next life, because you've fallen off in this life. And that is, we are the ones who are attaching bad meanings to stuff. For God, we are all children, and if we fall off the path, He'll definitely know that it is our own samskaras and stored memories from other lifetimes, and we are striving really hard. Even that little thing we did, He is going to remember and give you another chance to do it and take it as far as moksha, which is complete liberation. And then he talks about equanimity, and I wanted to really give this a good look, because we are saying swalpamapyasya dharmasya. What is the dharma we speak about here? This dharma is the selfless action and being equanimous, coming out of attachment and aversion. We are not talking about anything else. And while we talk about this, how are we going to achieve that? We are only going to achieve that if we have surrender. Like yesterday I said, unevenness of mind will not be gone in one day, because we are conditioned to think about good and bad, and me and you. There are always going to be these differentiations in the mind. For you to see pleasure and pain as equal, you definitely have to cultivate surrender towards the Lord or the supreme power. Or that you have to be at a certain place to begin with. That is to recognize and acknowledge the bigger power than you, at least that. And we do not want to get into Krishna or Rama or Jesus or Allah. No, you have to at least be in that place where there is a recognition of a supreme power above you, which has been you, which is you that you think the body and mind are. That part of you is not independent. So if that is there, that firm thing is there, okay, there is something above me, then that is the starting place of this path. Then you start to surrender to it, and after you surrender to it, you give it a good structure and framework for you to walk that spiritual path. You have daily prayers, your puja, all those things should lead to this. If you are doing puja, you are reading the scriptures, you are going to church, you're doing everything by your books, and then you still hate another person, or you feel that other people are below you and that your path alone is right, then that thing that you have done is not dharma. It has not taken you to the right path. It is not what God is. And if you think you're on God's side, you probably are not, if you are in that way. So this dharma that we want to walk on and create that equanimous mind needs to come from surrender. And something about equanimity, he says, equanimity is of two kinds. One is the mind and of the self. The Lord pervades everywhere equally. One who gets oneself established in Him gains victory over the world and is liberated. But this equanimity of self can only be known by equanimity of mind. He gives you an example of another verse that you can look up, 5:19, 5:20. I'm going to, in the comments, list all those verses that are referenced within this purport for 240. This way you know that these are related and you can look it up. So equanimity of mind consists in remaining even-minded in success and failure. Sukha dukkhe same kritva and those things. Even in second chapter 48th verse, you do have how to look at both pleasure and pain, happiness and sadness, victory and defeat as the same. So that is equanimity of mind. Such a person remains even-minded in praise and reproach, success and failure, profit and loss, pleasure and pain. That is 5th chapter 20th verse. This sort of equanimity never perishes, and it results in nothing but salvation. If you gain the equanimity of mind, equanimity of self comes next. What is equanimity of self? That is to see Lord everywhere. That Lord alone has pervaded us, you and me, and a bad situation and a good situation. That comes much later. First, equanimity of mind needs to be developed. Whatever virtuous actions such as penance, charity, and pilgrimage are performed by a man, these perish after giving fruit. But equanimity does not perish, and it leads man to salvation or God realization. So, whatever you do for the sake of worldliness is definitely going to work. Of course, it's going to work if it is within the path of dharma, and if it is a correct and virtuous, it's not bad to ask for stuff from the world if it is not in an unethical way, right? But the problem with that is you ask for it and it comes, and then that's it. The fruit is given and it moves on. There is nothing more coming to you. That good thing that you did for the sake of getting something from the world has exhausted itself. There is not much remaining, right? But equanimity, once you gain it, it is going to liberate you. It is much more than doing all these worldly things, worldly good deeds for the sake of worldly benefits. Then in appendix he says, Karma bandhanam prahasyasi. By equanimity, a man shakes off the shackles of karma. Neha bhikrama nashosti. There is no loss of effort. Pratyavayo na vidyate. There is no adverse result of this effort. Swalpamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahatovaya. This is from the previous verse 39. Even a little practice of this discipline protects one from the great danger of birth and death. And then he goes on to quote 1321, which is, the reason of bondage is the attachment to the modes of nature, which is the affinity with Prakriti and its evolutes. In equanimity, there is no affinity with Prakriti and its evolutes. Therefore, the man is freed from shackles of bondage. As in the world, many virtuous and sinful actions are done, but those actions don't bind us because we have no relationship with them. Similarly, the even-minded person has no relationship with the actions done by his body. So once he is even-minded, he considers everything to be the same. The actions that arise out of him is not the one that will bind him. And those actions will be correct automatically. You should know that, because leading this and saying, okay, I've gained equanimous mind and now I can go on killing people. No, your actions won't be that way. If you have mastered the equanimity of mind and self, you will see Lord everywhere, and you will love everybody because Lord loves everyone, and you will be that love that Lord is. So there is no way for an equanimous mind person, Sthita Prajna, or somebody who is enlightened, to be doing bad things. It will never occur for him to be operating in such a way. Again, good and bad is such a reference for relative reference for us, but the point of it is that he will be loving no matter what. It won't look like the love that you see within the family. Yogi will not come support you if somebody else is not nice to you. He'll not come and slap that person who's not nice to you and say, this is my friend, this is my disciple, so I'm hitting you. That's not how a yogi operates. For a yogi, the one that's coming and doing bad things to you or not being nice to you and you, both are Lord. So for him, he will be at the center. And in the presence of a yogi or Sthita Prajna or a saint, both the person who's having evil tendencies and the other person who has good tendency will start to feel his presence, and both of them will be at the center. Whatever he has going on, that equanimity spreads to other souls too. If equanimity merely begins, there is an aim at attaining equanimity, there is inquisitiveness to attain it, then this beginning is not destroyed. At least what Lord says here, if you start your path, spiritual path, and start to say, listen, I'm going to try to see Lord in every being, I'm going to try to see Lord in every situation. Just that starting point, that is an aim in attaining equanimity or inquisitiveness. At least if you have that, let me do this and see what happens. That alone will take you further, because that beginning is not destroyed. Once you keep one step further, you're not going to go 5 steps backward. The Lord is promising you this, and that's why I say this is the most promising verse in entire Gita, because it gives us hope. And then he also quotes 644, and then he goes on to say there is no adverse result in equanimity, because if you pronounce anything bad in a sacred text, there will be actions and repercussions for that. But once you have walked the path of spirituality and trying to see Lord everywhere, there is no selfish motive here. Who doesn't covet any fruit? Adverse effects is not possible when you are not expecting anything. In this path, you're not going to say, I'm going to be equal, I'm going to see Lord everywhere, but I may want this one thing. That's not possible. In spiritual path and walking the path, once you say, I am going to see Lord everywhere, then that means that there is no self there. There is no selfishness there. And then he goes on to say some things about equanimity. And then he says, the least renunciation is real and biggest action is unreal. Swalpam apyasa. Why is it saying the little? How can this path be called little? Swalpam apyasa. Even if you do a little bit of this, you will be saved. How can this be little, right? You can be interested in 10,000 things, but you've come to read the Gita and watching this channel to see what you can do with this great text. That is not little. That's a big thing, right? How can you say that's little? No. Why it is called little is that when you walk this path in the beginning, you will start to see that you're not always in that mode. We only understand a little bit of it, or we are experiencing only a little bit of it. The experiences and the nice bliss that comes out of walking the path is very little in the beginning. You don't feel blissful all the time. You have started this, you feel good about it, you were thinking that you're doing something. There are great dangers that are lurking in front of you. Sometimes this whole effort that you're taking, that itself will be a big ego thing for you. Oh, I'm reading the Gita, I'm better than others. No. So we have to be careful here. However, the experience or actual experience of walking the spiritual path, getting into spirituality and looking at things equally and seeing Lord everywhere, that bliss is very little in the beginning. So even if it is little in the beginning, that's where that comes, because this action itself is not little. That is, your decision to come into spirituality is not little at all. He says least renunciation is real, but biggest action is unreal. Why? Even if you do a little bit in this is real, because it's really going to take you towards reality. Who you are is going to be answered soon. However, whatever action you do in the world, even biggest action, you make so much money, and then even charity, even those things that we consider noble, even the biggest ones, they only give you fruit. And Sri Ramana Maharishi says, all these things you do, right, good and bad, they are only going to be into that design of you do good things will occur. You do bad things will occur. Karma is such. You are in a cycle there. However, when you walk into spirituality and start looking at things and transcending things, you start to see who you are, what is reality, and then it takes you away from these two things that are there, like dvanda they call, this duality, and then you start to realize God, who is the one stuff that is fully pervading into this world. As things outside you, as soul inside you, as situations, as your thoughts, your feelings, everything is Lord. You go there. So Sri Ramana Maharishi says that all those other things, they'll only give you fruits, but they will not take you home. He says, Veedu taralile unti para. They will not take you home. All these deeds that you do, spirituality, you think it's spirituality, but you have all these selfish motives in there. I'll go break a coconut in the temple, and I have to pass this exam. I'll go to church and light candles. My son needs to get married. These things will give you it's a good thing you're doing. They will give you fruit, but that's as far as it will take you. It will not take you fully to home, back to God. So that is why he is saying the feeling of disinterestedness is great, but we understand and experience it a little, so it has been called a little. Dharma itself is not swalpa, but the way we walk in the beginning, it's so little, even that little will carry us so far. That's what it says. And then he is concluding saying that in Upanishads, the Supreme Soul has been called smaller than a molecule and biggest of all, Anoraniyan Mahato Mahiyan. That's why it says that Swalpa, even though it is small, it is also very big. The Lord or Supreme Soul is also a small atom, smaller than an atom, and also biggest of all. That's what Upanishads claim. So he has quoted that for this verse. It's an amazing verse, and reading this and just meditating on this alone gives us great freedom. We feel very much better that Lord himself has declared that, you've come to the right place. You've taken step number 1. Let me hold on to this step. Even if you fall off, world's distractions are many. We are all in worldly path anyway. We are in the world after all. It's not easy for us to take off and just go to backpack to Himalayas or go somewhere and sit. We have the world to deal with. We have families. We have bosses to deal with. We have health to deal with. There's so much. He knows. He understands the odds that are against us. But you know what? That genuine intention to take the step number 1, he recognizes here and says, you know what, don't worry, this is going to help you because you've taken step number 1. Even if you fall according to your karmas and your last births, things that you carry on, even if you're unsuccessful and you fall off, you will start from where you stopped. You're not going to go to back to square one. I'll take you from where you left off and then let you proceed in your journey towards me. This is a beautiful verse. I hope you like this verse for verse of the week. I'll meet you with other verses for this series very soon. Thank you and bye bye.